Thanks for choosing to take flight.
So talk to me, like, so you went on the fitness journey then. When, like, maybe if we go down like a route of the tipping points, any tipping points for you when you started to see some type of external success with this new journey outside of corporate?
Shit, Mark, it took a while.
Did it? Yeah.
I always tell people, bro, I mean, I made videos for 2 years before anyone really watched my shit, bro. And some people are gonna sit here and say, or that's listening, they're gonna be like, 2 years is not that long. And some people are gonna say, you did that shit for 2 years? Some people don't make content consistently for 30 days, let alone 2 years, right? It was interesting. The tipping point happened when I started getting into things outside of my comfort once again. And I think that's why I'm so gung-ho about leaning into discomfort. A lot of this happened through COVID for me. So peeling back, right? I left corporate America. I started personal training. I started creating content. A lot of what I was doing was around football. I was training like high school, college football players because that's what I knew, right? I was familiar with that. I knew that I didn't have the expertise in biomechanics and having a certification as a trainer, but I played 10 plus years of football. Like, it's just who I am. It's what I know. And it was a strength of mine. So
what position were you?
I played receiver and quarterback.
Sick.
Yeah. So I leaned into that. I started training people and athletes in my local area because I went to high school there. So I had a level of clout and people knew my name. And I basically leveraged that and the connections in the local area. A lot of what I've been able to do was learning from people that were smarter than me. And that's been like a secret sauce that I think anyone should understand. Like, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. If you hang out with just straight bums and people that are complacent, then that's gonna be you. If you hang out with people that are overachieving, that are striving for greatness, that you're gonna be the next one up as well. And that's just what I was doing. I was surrounding myself with people that were trying to be great. And it's interesting to see now where I'm at and other people that I used to look up to. Not that I've passed them, because it's all just a subjective game of what you deem as success anyways. But the tipping point happened when I started to get into running. And running happened for me when lockdown happened. All the gyms got shut down. I got laid off as a trainer. So I was starting back at ground zero again. I was on unemployment. I was trying to figure it out, living at home. I'm like, holy shit, I can't work out. I can't necessarily see people in person anymore. What the fuck am I gonna do? So I leaned into myself again. So I'm like, all right, you know what? The Murph workout. You guys know the Murph workout? It's he's an American soldier. He died in the Operation Red Wings, there's a movie called Lone Survivor. Yes. Yeah. So Mike Murphy, the lieutenant, it's named after him. It's a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and another mile. And you could do it broken up, right? So you would break up the push-ups, pull-ups, and squats. But I did that 30 days in a row. At the end of the month, I accumulated 60 miles of base building. That was my start of just running in general. And I say that story because those challenges are really what started to get me out of my comfort, because I had to be creative and figure out a different way to make content, because I couldn't just go meet people and do football drills and exercises anymore. I had to lean into myself. And I did that 30 days in a row. And I got a little bit of traction. Some people were like, this guy's fucking crazy doing 30 Murphs, 30 days. And as I kind of kept going with different challenges, and I further got into running, I was reading Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And I just was like, you know what? Let me go run 3 miles. Let me go try to run 5, and then 6, and then 8, and then half marathon. And I just kept trying to challenge myself little by little. The video that really popped off, and I'm getting to your question, I went to the Philadelphia Marathon and I did that mile split thing, like you said, right? Mile 1, 650, mile 2, whatever. I did that for 26 miles. And COM PLEX DM'd me and they were like, Matt, do you mind if we repost that video on our page, on COM PLEX's page? I was like, first of all, I wasn't even following COM PLEX. It was in my like hidden DM. So I was like, oh shit. I was like, yes. I was like, repost it, go for it. Instantly, they posted that video, hit like 2 million views on Instagram. At that time, I had maybe 4,000 followers on Instagram. In 48 hours, I got to 8,000 followers. Like literally just by COM PLEX posting that video, instantly my Instagram started to grow very fast. And at this point, I already had like maybe 150,000 followers on TikTok. A lot of my audience was grown on TikTok first. So I guess maybe that's the first answer to the question was I went crazy on TikTok. When Gary Vee was preaching, get on TikTok, get on TikTok, get on TikTok. And at first, I wasn't listening. As much Gary Vee as I listened to, I wasn't listening at first because I was just like everyone else and I wanted to win on Instagram. Everyone wants to win on Instagram because it's social proof, it's social currency. But right now, everyone wants to win on TikTok. And everything changes because as time goes, every platform gets older. Facebook started with college kids, and now it's freaking our parents. My mom uses Facebook, right? And Instagram's the same way. Instagram's getting older, and all the older people don't want to get on TikTok because they think it's young. But now, in 2022, 38 to 50-year-olds were the largest demographic that went onto TikTok. So the platform's getting older. So to answer your question, I think there was 2 tipping points. One, TikTok was just a win for me. I was posting 5 videos a day just to test.
Just organic growth to 100 and what?
I've never done any paid ads on any of my social media besides sponsored posts through brands. But besides that, every post I've done has always been organic.
But the TikTok growth to like 100 and whatever thousand was just consistency.
Organic, just organic.
Yeah, I love it, man.
3 to 5 videos a day.
And the Philadelphia Marathon, what gave you the idea to do that split post? If people haven't seen it, do you want to explain what it is?
Yeah, it's basically what it is I do like an intro like, yo, we're running the 2021 Philadelphia Marathon, and every single mile I just say out my split that I got, right? And at that time it was like mile 1, 7:05, mile 2, 7:10, mile 3, and down the list for 26 miles. The reason that I think it's so interesting for people is that my facial expression from mile 1 to 26 is not like, it's pretty much the same, which is interesting that it's like, it doesn't look like I'm getting tired. And where I got the idea from is a couple places. No one's ever done it in that way of like mile and then split, right? Like that exact thing. But my buddy Hella, I saw Hella do like, he'll just do like mile 1 and he'll just go like this into the screen and then pop up the split on the screen as text. And I've seen other runners do similar things, not every mile, but every like couple miles. So I just thought of the idea of like, what if I just literally made a clip every single mile just to get people engaged with me and see how I'm feeling from the start to the finish. Yeah. And then now I'm kind of known for it, and like I do it at every race, and people are like, "What the?"
It's so good, like mile 8.
Exactly, I say it pretty eagerly, and like it's a fun thing now that I've kind of like made my own.
Yeah, but listen, man, like the story is incredible, but what jumps out at me is something that's so simple, but we don't do, and I'm so guilty of it. I'm still not properly on TikTok because I'm trying to win on Instagram. And you listened to the Gary Vee advice. You got on TikTok, you did it. You were consistent, you made the content, you listened, and it worked. Like, that's the biggest compliment I can give you, is that you actually went out there, you sought out advice from books, from listening to people, and then you did it. It's amazing.
I appreciate that. And, you know, something I always say, so many people read and listen to books and they watch YouTube videos and they do all these things, but we as humans learn best by doing. And by failing and by learning. And if you never actually do it, if you never put yourself out there to fail, then you're always gonna be in your head of like, oh, I think I know what I can do, or I think I know what I need to do, but then you never actually go do it to then reap the rewards of it. And to your point, Mark, like it's literally, I'm like, once you start to get the base level of education of whatever niche or industry or topic that you're interested in, at some point you need to take a level of action, because that's where the true growth is happening. To put yourself out there, to be vulnerable for love and admiration in addition to hate and negativity, that's where you're gonna really learn about, 1, is this the right thing for me? And 2, does this shit really work? Once that popped for me, once TikTok popped for me, I knew Gary was right. And I knew he was right all the hours before I listened to him. But it's to exactly what you said. Sometimes the way you hear it, at the moment that you hear it, it rings the bell, the light bulb goes off, and then you're like, oh shit, let me change my trajectory here. Let me change my strategy. And that's kind of what happened.
What is it that stops people listening, do you think?
I think it's a fear of potentially doing the thing, right? And I think it comes back to the judgment as well, right? Because at that point, right, TikTok was branded as these young kids that are just dancing. So who wants to be known as the guy that's on TikTok, right? Like, it's just, I think there's a level of judgment that people don't want to deal with, because it's not the platform where it was getting as much love and praise at that time. So in terms of what stops people from actually doing though, I think it's all in between your own ears. I think some people don't think that they're worthy of actually building something that's meaningful or doing something that they're passionate about. They don't think that they're worthy to actually live their life and design the life that they want to live, because we've never been programmed this way. We've been taught to just be employees, to be students our whole lives. No one tells you to go be an entrepreneur. So of course it's new. Now, how does someone break out of that mindset? They need to be super intentional, and they need to have a level of ambition that overcomes the fear of the judgment. If your ambition is stronger than the judgment that you're gonna get, then you're gonna at least attempt it. And then from there, how big you wanna grow it is up to you. But it's actually very common, and I understand exactly why most people don't do it. It is scary. Mark, sitting where I sit now and sitting where we sit, it is scary because you're vulnerable for judgment. And if your approval comes from other people's opinion, then you're fucked. For me, even when I do stupid shit, even when the stuff that happened to me at Houston, I had a little bit of controversy that happened to me at the Houston Marathon where I was getting some negative feedback and some negative backlash. It did not enter my framework because I know that my intent was not coming from a negative place. I know that I was just going to that race to just run my race, not to go qualify for someone else. So if you are clear about what you're trying to do in this earth, the opinions of other people, good or bad, should not change your framework. And I think the most thing that I was proud about myself about all of that was I wasn't too hard on myself because I knew that I was coming from the right place and I wasn't trying to cheat the system or run for someone else. So I think to answer your question, I think you need to have a high understanding of who you are and what you're trying to do so that you can deal and overcome with the adversity and the failures that are gonna happen in life.
Superb. I love what you said as well. Like when the ambition outweighs the fear or outweighs your fear of what other people are going to think, like you're going to do it. So I'm assuming that's what happened to you with the TikTok thing, right? It's like I finally listened because the ambition outweighed the fear of doing the thing. My dad always says a quote to me as well, which is linked to what you said at the end there, which is, as long as what you're doing is in good faith, you're good. Like you saying like, you know, it's coming from a good place internally. So you can be happy with yourself. You can be at peace with yourself, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think also something that I've just like really learned through this content creating process is that no matter who you are, you can't please everyone. And you shouldn't try to. Exactly what your dad told you. As long as your intent is good, period. That's it. That's all that fucking matters. Because everyone in this world, they're always gonna spin it in some way. Literally, Mr. Beast donated a bunch of money to get people that were blind to fix their sight. And people were shitting on him that, oh my God, you're just trying to make money off of these people's things. I'm like, the thought that someone has the audacity to think that comes from a negative light, that they're just trying to benefit off money to showcase their story, it's ludicrous.
It only says more about them, right?
1000%, Mark. And it just shows you that you could be doing the dopest shit in the world. Elon Musk, trying to change the world, trying to change the way that innovation happens and technology happens, and people still shit on them. No matter who you are, how big or small, there's always gonna be someone that has something to say. And as long as you don't let that change who you are and what you're trying to do, then you're good. But you gotta build a mindset that's strong enough to deal with that, because you put yourself out there long enough and there's always gonna be some backlash.
Yeah, 100%, man. Mate, I'm getting a good idea of who you are, man. I love it. I love it, man. It's inspiring stuff. I'm interested to know, like, what do we need to know about your upbringing to know more about your makeup and who you are?
Adversity.
Okay.
I was actually talking about this at dinner yesterday, and you know, the conversation was similar to this about like, you know, how do you create more people that have this mindset? And when you create friction and when you have adversity in your life, you're able to better deal and cope with things. And that's been my life as a kid. I had parents that got divorced when I was super young. I always grew up with a single parent mom. Seeing my mom hustle and grind multiple jobs to put food on the table, to put a roof over me and my older brother's head, I saw grit and I saw work ethic from a young age. My mom never had to tell me what grit or what hard work was. I just saw it. So for me, a lot of my childhood has formed me into who I am today. I believe that people that go through adversity, just like a LeBron James, just like athletes that came from households that were very uncontrolled, they end up creating a chip on their shoulder. They have a mindset that's unbreakable because they've seen the worst. You have a kid that's been spoon-fed everything his whole life, that grew up in Beverly Hills with a white picket fence, with a 6-car garage. Like, what adversity is that kid going through? And it's not that you give that kid less, it's no like comparison, but it's just like, if you think about that picture, the kid that's wondering about where the next meal is coming from is going through a different level of stress than the kid that has to deal with, oh, do I get Nikes or Under Armours? So I think adversity is a powerful thing. And the more you can lean into it and use it as a strength and not a weakness, and that right there, I think, is the game. Gary Vee says it all the time. Growing up in Queens with 9 family members in 1 bedroom apartment, that creates grit. That creates perspective and gratitude for what you have. So many people in this world, they're so unhappy because they look at what other people have and they're comparing it. I don't have a Bugatti. I don't have a G-Wagon. If you just look at what you have, that shit changes the game. For me, people are like, I want to be bigger for sure, but I know that there's people that look at me and they want to be exactly where I'm at, and that's their dream. So who am I to complain about what I have, right? Like I go super. I lean into gratitude at any moments where I feel like I'm down and out. I'm like, yo, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I have clean drinking water. Like, what am I really complaining about? And that's why I'm able to show up with such a positive mindset, because so many people wish that they could sit in my shoes. Even though I have ambition to do more, people wish that they can be where I'm at. So I'm like, shit. It leans, and I say that to say, as a kid, my mom put a lot of self-esteem, and she showed us to just appreciate the small things, because as kids, me and my brother didn't get all the things. Like, we didn't get all the game systems and all the newest stuff. I got hand-me-downs all the times, and it's just one of those things where you lean into the gratitude aspect, because what else do you have?
Oh man, so good. I think everyone can benefit from that. Like, it's too easy to not be grateful for what we have, and again, it's the external game, isn't it? Mm-hmm. What else in your childhood is like, you know, there's a really interesting thing that Tony Robbins said once. I think it was on the Tim Ferriss podcast. He said, like, if you could only ask somebody one question, what would it be? Right? He was like, man, I would never ask someone one question. But he said, if I was limited, I think he said there'd be 2, right? So he was like, the first thing he'd ask is, who did you love more? Or whose love did you crave more as a kid, your mum or your dad? And then, so, you know, you say whoever that is. And then, who did you have to be for them? So who did you have to be for that person?
I craved my mom's love as a kid more, because I always felt like my mom had always like kind of loved my brother a little bit more. Only in the sense of my mom and my brother are much more similar. They think alike, and like growing up, obviously, being the older brother my brother was, he had to kind of be a male role model for me, kind of a father figure, and almost like a husband figure for my mom, having to really be like that figure that is kind of like a rock in that sense in the household. And I feel like when I was growing up, I was like, I just craved to get the attention from my mom when I didn't always feel like I had it. And it's an interesting thing now as I've kind of gotten more mature, and in certain aspects of my life, maybe more mature than my brother has. And it's almost flipped now, where me and my mom are super close because she sees the maturity in me and how much growth that there's been. But it's also just my mindset on how I approach life and how I see the world in that sense, right? And it's interesting how like me and her have gotten closer, and now her and my brother kind of, you know, Asian parents always have an expectation for their kids, especially their oldest one. And that friction has now almost separated their relationship, where it's an interesting dynamic where how time can change those things, right? But me and my dad are very similar in terms of the way that we approach life and just how we do a lot of things. I think I look like my mom more, but I act like my dad. But it's a healthy balance, because I act like my dad. My mom can relate with me more because she can vent to me. She can complain about the things that she's going on in her life, because with her and my brother, they're just the same person that it collides. But I'm a different energy. I listen a lot more than I speak, even though I'm very extroverted. And in podcast cases, I talk a lot more. But in most times, I'm actually a lot more introverted than people think. And that's like something that most people don't know about me. But to answer your question, I think I craved my mom's attention as a kid more. And I think now I'm learning that I also want my dad's attention, because who doesn't want their dad in their life? My dad never came to a lot of my games. He didn't come to watch me graduate. He didn't do a lot of things because it was awkward for him to have my mom's whole side of the family around these gatherings and these events. So he'd rather just choose not to show up. That shit hurts. It's not a great feeling to not have your dad there at a state championship game, at your first college game, to watch you walk across the graduation. Like, that shit's not a good feeling. I understand like where he's coming from in that sense of like, it just doesn't feel as comfortable for him when he's around ex-in-laws. Not because, you know what I'm saying? Like who wants to be around that environment? So I understand, but I also have a level of empathy where I could work on my Korean to better build that relationship. there's a language barrier, right? I don't speak as fluent Korean. My dad's a lot more traditional. My mom's way more Western cultured, way more Americanized. So in moments like that, Mark, I always look internal for myself. Like, it's easy to point the finger. It's easy to say, like, I wish I had my dad in my life. I wish I had a better situation growing up, but like, what can you do about it now? And I always tell my brother this, like, as kids, as younger people, we have more control to change. Parents, they can still change. It's just a little bit tougher, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I think the challenge is always like, control what you can. I can control my behavior and the things that I do to help build relationships with other people. My dad example, I think it's a great example. Like, I can complain about how my dad doesn't know English, but what is that doing? I should just then go learn Korean to then build that relationship. You know what I'm saying? Where I feel like the world, it's so easy to just be like, oh my God, this person doesn't do this person do this. Like, then what are you doing about it? And I think if more people thought in that fashion, the world would be a much better place and a more happier place because you're in control.
How old are you, Matt?
I'm 27.
27, man. You're so aware. It's incredible.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really amazing to hear that mindset and that perspective. You've obviously done your work, so props for that, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how much is that? And thank you for sharing that, by the way. I really appreciate that. How much has that driven you and contributed to your success? Do you think, like, either the awareness of that or just the fact that it even just happened?
I think it's been substantial. I think that a lot of my childhood, a lot of, the adversity that I went through as a kid has formed me into exactly who I am right now. And obviously along the way, the high level of education I've gotten from certain entrepreneurs, certain business people, certain monks, certain preachers, whoever it is, right? You can gain inspiration from a lot of people. I've now basically like taken all of that knowledge and almost spun it into how it works for me. And a lot of that, like the grit, the hard work, the discipline, these things I almost learned through football and through sports. And entrepreneurship is the biggest game of, it's the biggest sport you can play because there's no cap, there's no timeline. Like, you can play this forever. And I think a lot of who I am now is because I went through that adversity. I went through those struggles. And I think the biggest thing though is you have to be intentional with changing. It doesn't happen overnight. I didn't just become this person because I read one book, right? You have to do that stuff every day and put it into practice, and small things compound over time. It's just like investing. You put $1 in a day in the S&P market, like at some point you'll be a millionaire at some point if you do it every single day. Yeah. And that's just how I feel about doing things that are out of my comfort. Cold showers, reading, journaling, things that I hated to do, things that, Mark, I would not even imagine doing 3 to 5 years ago that I do every single day, and I can't fathom not doing it.
Like what?
In the morning, I do the Wim Hof method every day before I brush my teeth.
What, 3 rounds?
3 rounds, Wim Hof. I do 100 push-ups.
Every day?
Every day. I have a red light in there that I've recently started to use more. And then right after that, I read 1 page of the Daily Stoic.
I see your Daily Stoic post.
And then I've recently started doing the 5-minute journal where I just write down 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make it a great day, and then 1 affirmation.
How do you maintain the discipline?
I think by creating a routine. I think by creating no friction. Everything I have, everything I just listed to you, it's literally right on the floor of my bedroom right here. And every single day in the morning, before I touch my phone, before I go into the world of social media, before I go into the world of anyone else, I spend 10 minutes on myself, 10 to 15 minutes for myself. And that little intentional time before the world starts is for me to just set the foundation of how I want my day to go. And that, in terms of how do I actually make it a practice, is like creating no friction for yourself. Every single day in the morning, it's all right there. Like, all the things I just said are right on the floor right there where it's just ready to go. Now, how do you build that routine when you're traveling and when you're doing other things? It gets a little bit tougher. And I think what I would tell someone is just don't judge yourself. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. So many humans beat themselves up, and it stops them from achieving the things that they want because they're like, oh my God, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't fast enough. I didn't hit my splits. Dude, the fact that you showed up, you should praise yourself.
Hey, it's Mark Whittle. Thanks so much for watching or listening. It's so great to have you a part of the Take Flight movement. Subscribe to the podcast on all platforms, video and audio, to be the first to see new episodes and new conversations with the greatest minds in the world. Follow me at markwhittle_TF on all social platforms, and visit takeflightworld.com to join our growing community of hustlers. performers and go-getters. I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, stay positive, stay motivated, and of course, take flight.